I'm Joyce Hornady. You might say accuracy is my business. I make bullets.
You are listening to the Hornady Podcast.
Thanks for joining us and enjoy the show.
Welcome back, everybody, to yet another episode of the Hornady Podcast. Thanks for joining us. As always, I'm your host, Seth Swerzik, and I'm joined today, to my right, Ryan Damon, project engineer here at Hornady. Across the table, Preston Lentfer, marketeer for us. Gentlemen, thanks for sitting down with me today.
Appreciate it.
Glad
I've never been called
here.
a marketeer before, but that's an interesting name.
Yeah, it's an official title.
Okay.
Look at your business card. It's on there. So I brought you guys in here today. We are gathered to talk about the Kansas muzzleloader hunt. Now, if you remember back a few short months ago, Ryan and I got some muzzleloader tags for north central Kansas to hunt, again, with the muzzleloader. And Ryan, the proprietor of the Board Driver FTX muzzleloading system from start to finish, that was your baby. You did absolutely awesome with it. And we set out to try to track down a stud Midwest whitetail and get him shot with the Board Driver FTX bullet. And to do that, we scheduled a hunt with Midwest Whitetail Adventures out of Clay Center, Kansas. And let's just recount kind of our experiences. Full circle here, we've got Ryan, you developed the whole bullet system, and you hunted with us in September. Nobody was successful in September. And then Preston, you got to take part in the September hunt, and then you and I both went back in December because a muzzleloader tag in Kansas is also valid during the rifle season, so long as you use your muzzleloading equipment. So we got to go back in December, and we actually did get to connect on a stud Kansas whitetail. So let's
Right here.
Geez, what a beaut.
Yeah.
Let's start right back at the beginning then. And you know that hunt was in September in north central Kansas, and there are times you're going to have snow on the ground in September. That was not this time.
Nope.
No, that was
Rare times.
Yeah.
Yeah. We had 80 degrees one day.
Yeah,
if I'm not mistaken. I wore a cutoff shirt in the blind.
Yeah, you look good too. I'm surprised we didn't see more deer just because of that.
Sun's out, guns out.
Yeah, it was warm, but hey, that's hunting. You can't predict the weather. Can't plan for it. So, but the good thing was, we're on a bunch of ag ground, food plots in the area, great habitat.
Yeah. The stage was set that there's a chance that there's going to be some big deer at least seen, maybe not killed because that's a different story. But like you mentioned, the area, if you were going to just dream up a whitetail paradise, it's a good chance you dreamed up north central Kansas.
Yeah, I think it was rare for there to be a square mile down there that didn't have some sort of cover, big trees. I mean, they seem to have a lot of places to hide.
Yep. That's not only do they have a lot of place to eat, they have a place to live, which is semi-unusual for most of Nebraska, which is where we hail from. And Ryan, you're from Ohio, so I don't know how it is up there, but at least where we grew up in Nebraska, there's generally a lot of food for them, and then their houses get harvested every October, and so there's not a lot of place to live. But down there in Kansas, I mean, one thing that we talked about was the edging. It wasn't just, field, a little bit of trees. I mean, they had.
Well, growing up, I mean, before there was $7 corn, and I mean, trees were taken down to put in center pivots and all this stuff. My portion of Nebraska kind of looked similar to that too, but down there it was like, and they're mature trees too. I found like big old turkey roosters, like lots of trees down there. So probably a lot of acorns down there as well, if I'm guessing. I'm not a big
tree
connoisseur. Don't know
connoisseur.
exactly what they're eating down there, but while the crops are in the field, they've got all of that food and then a place to live. And when those crops are gone, they probably have a lot of food in the cover.
A lot of native browse.
Acorns, natural browse, all the above.
Yeah.
Yep.
You brought up Ohio. Similar to that, Ohio could look, at least northern Ohio. It's like northern Ohio and southern half of Ohio are two different universes. But where I'm from, it's a lot of small, it's flat. I mean, flatter than out here, really. A lot of small wood lots, a lot of mature hardwoods, but a lot of people have wood burning stoves to heat their house. So they maintain those wood lots. and they just cut down trees for heat. And so a lot of corn, a lot of ag, but it's really flat. Not a lot of biodiversity, as I saw in Kansas, creek bottoms, hills, valleys. Not so much where I'm from in northern Ohio. It's just flat. Flat, and you got square woodlots. Perfectly square. You can see, in the wintertime, you can see right through them. It's not good cover. So you think it's good cover, but yeah, the deer don't use it. Once the vegetation's dead, no green life, it's not good cover.
And the cool thing I thought about down there was a lot of CRP type or just pasture ground there.
Yeah.
Ground down there. There was not, everything down there was not harvested or tilled for corn or beans.
Yeah.
There was natural stuff down
Just
there.
love to see that. That to me, that's awesome. And then you couple that old standing hardwood, the creek bottoms, the cedar draws, plus that little bit of ag that they had going on, and the river system. I mean, you just got whitetail paradise.
Yeah. What river was down there again?
Republic.
Was that the Republican?
Yeah.
Coming right down there. So a lot of sustenance probably come from that too.
Yeah, and one thing I think, and I'm not a go-to whitetail guy, but one thing I know from growing up and hunting in warmer weathers as you get into September, because Nebraska's bow season opens up September 1st, deer don't necessarily need to water if they're getting good natural browse that's growing. They don't need to go to water every single day. So when it's 60 and 70 degrees, you might not find them if you're hunting a water source all the time. Now, as it gets up in 80, 90 plus degree temperatures, you can.
They have to have it.
Yeah, but where we were hunting, that temperature ranged from, I think the coldest it would have been one morning at maybe 40-something degrees. And then it hit 80 degrees. So as long as they're getting good food sources, they really don't need to hit that water. And so that made for a challenging hunt, to say the least.
Yeah, I mean, we should mention though that the lodge itself was fantastic. The employees there, all fantastic. Good, just a bunch of good dudes that love to hunt deer.
Yeah,
right? And Miss Carol, our cook, was absolutely fantastic to us. We did not lose any weight on this trip, whatsoever.
No, that was that's a good point. Good point to bring up. I think Ryan backed me up here, just like Preston mentioned, the whole lodging experience, which as a whole, we are completely new to. That is so far out of right field for all of us and the way we grew up hunting and the way we currently hunt now, that it was just kind of felt weird. But the hospitality was really great.
It wasn't a tent or a $75 hotel.
Right.
Yeah.
It was, and the lodge was super new. It looked like to me, and it was just fantastic. Comfy beds and everything.
Even better, it wasn't sleeping in the front seat of your pickup truck. That's
I've
the
yet
worst.
to do that, but I will put up a tent in
Or even
about
the back
5 minutes.
Sleeping in the pickup bed. Yeah, it's no fun.
Yeah, just praying for daylight at that point.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
But this was much better than that.
Yeah.
Nice bed.
Yeah,
Good food.
was great. And again, just the hospitality in that this was it was certainly my first experience, and I'm assuming yours as well, hunting with that type of an outfitter, or any outfitter for that matter, and the way that they welcomed you in and explained how the process works and what you're going to be doing and the strategy behind what you were doing, it really made me feel comfortable. And that's huge. I think, you're going to spend some money to do a trip like that. You want to feel good about what you're doing and what they're doing. And, they made me feel good. So we get there in an afternoon, and so we're going to go hunt that night. And I was beside myself with excitement for that initial stand, because you have no idea what you're getting into. What I do know, Kansas is known for big whitetail, that the area in which we were hunting was primed to have some really good mature deer. Inside the lodge, there was probably 36 examples of what a whitetail buck at maturity should look like. So you see all these things, and it's like, wow, these bucks were harvested here. Like, this is a huge deal. So I was super pumped to get out there and just see the lay of the land. And we got to hunt from, at least initially, Preston and I, because he was filming, we hunted out of a box blind, which was also my first time hunting from a box blind, which sounds odd, but that's just not how we hunted growing up, and it's not the way I hunt now. And I've shot competitively. I've shot stages from a ground blind or from a box blind, but I've never actually hunted from one.
That was kind of funny.
That was kind of weird. I don't know, Ryan. What was your experience? First sit.
I remember my first thought, because we show up. Obviously, they got dozens and dozens of sets already prepped, ready to go. All these different lease properties, and they know we got this many hunters, so they got to pick along with other guys that are there hunting outside of us Hornady guys. So they have spots picked for all these guys, and anytime I'm hunting by myself, I have a good idea what's in the neighborhood, like what's next door over here. Is it close to ag? Is there a cornfield here, bean field? Where do I think the bedding's at, or at least have some knowledge going in where I think the deer are going to be coming from, where I think the deer are headed to in the evening. And I remember just going out. Oh, here's your spot. This is kind of the layout, and I'm obviously just blind to it. And that was the biggest thing to try to get used to. It's like, okay, I'm in a tree stand. I feel comfortable in the tree. Good. It's awesome. I'm over this food plot, and there's my guide that was driving me around, kind of trying to lay it out for me, but without seeing it on a map, like, yeah, okay, I'm here. It was just foreign. So I'm sitting there like, okay, this is north, this is west, trying to lay it out in my head.
Just some basic orientation.
Just getting my bearings of where I'm at and where I think deer might be moving through, and what are they looking to do, where is their end destination for the night. That was the biggest change for me. But then I see deer like right away. That first night, I remember that. Couple does and fawns and two or three, whatever, yearling bucks, little dinks. But yeah, I saw deer pretty much right away. It was a good spot. And then even for the rest of the time we were down there, it was the same thing. And I'm following where we're going on Onyx, trying to figure out, okay, this is this property. Oh, yeah, over here. After I actually hunted, 6 different spots, unlike you guys.
Yeah.
We had one spot.
So
we were committed.
I only think I repeated a stand twice. So, and then when I'm there, I'm obviously looking at what's in the area, but still, I can look on a map and without being there or scouting it on foot, or it's just that was the biggest difference.
Yeah,
I'm trying to get a feel for that.
When we're doing our own hunts, we put a lot of effort into trying to figure stuff out ahead of time. That you can't do that on a hunt like this. You have to trust them. Because we're not the only folks that are going to be there all year long.
No,
so they're not going to send us into the bedding.
This is early or late September. They had a couple weeks. I don't even know when, I guess, when Kansas archery opens, but I know there had been guys there at season opener, probably. But, the prime of the season was well after we were there, so they had to keep these spots.
Well, and I think that's probably something to talk about, too, is from a strategy standpoint, so there was Ryan and myself hunting, and then we had North American Whitetail was there, North American Whitetail TV. So we had Sam Forbes with us from North American Whitetail, and all three were unsuccessful in September. And again, back to the weather, it was tough hunting because those animals weren't, they were moving a little bit in the morning, a little bit in the evening, and that's about it. And we, like you had mentioned, they kind of take you to your stand and they got it set up where they have done their research and think it's a good spot. And if you were going to hunt a whitetail in that temperature at this time of year, you'd probably do it a little differently. At least I know I would. If you were left to your own devices, how would you approach a situation like that?
Right, and it's that and the whole other thing of I'm the only person that I have to worry about.
That's what I mean. If you were left to your own devices,
I don't have to worry about making sure this spot's not overpressured for the next 5 guys that show up here.
Mm-hmm.
Personally, whenever I scout a new spot, I want to be there ideally, say the previous spring or the previous summer, to get that previous season sign and try to figure out, okay, this is where the deer like to live. This is some of the rut sign I see. Here's pre-rut sign, rubs, scrapes, all the good stuff deer hunters like to see. But if you're, I lost my train of thought, but I was trying to trace that back. But yeah, the way I approach it, you can't even do it that for these guys because
you would probably hunt some bedding cover maybe or some in the timber natural.
I can't say that I would though.
Yeah.
If that was my land or that was land that I had access to, but I would have the whole entire season, I'm probably not going to go bludgeoning on in there.
Yeah. Well, let me paint a hypothetical, not to barge in here. Hypothetical is you show up to north central Kansas, and all of the farms that we hunted that was leased up, let's pretend those were walk-in public land access. You had 5 days to get it done, and you were going home. You had no outfitter involvement whatsoever. How would you approach that?
I want to first evening and morning I'm there. I don't even want to hunt, and I want to glass from a distance, assuming I know there's, well, okay, if we're on walk-in, you might have to worry about their guys. But if I can go somewhere if I don't see like there's a lot of human pressure there, I want to glass from a road or a parking area or on a hill somewhere that I have legal access to, and where I think, okay, I'm going to try to find where these deer head to feed in the evening. That time of year, they're going to be most likely traveling late, as in last half hour of light. They're getting up out of their beds or moving to food. Does, fawns, young bucks are going to be moving first. I want to see where that traffic's at before I even go in there and try to pressure that spot. Sure. Same thing in the morning. I want to try to, for first thing, if I say I got lucky, found a buck that first night, I want to see if he's in the same feed area that next morning. Try to catch him out, coming back to bed, see where that early in the season, not pressured, it's a good chance those deer are taking the same patterns.
Okay. Yep. So try to pattern them up a little bit.
Got a decent chance. Hey, that buck came this way at night, with maybe he's got on a certain wind. He goes to this cornfield or he's going to that bean field. And in the morning, same wind. Maybe he's going back to the same bed, or maybe he's got a different bed because it's a different wind. And if you got 5 days to hunt, I think I might waste 1.5 or 2 of them scouting.
Okay.
To make that first, when I go in, I probably would go in deep if it's on a walk-in. Go into a bedding area where I think I have a fair confidence that I'm going to have at least a crack at seeing a buck. Maybe not getting a shot, but then just keep moving closer, especially then with a muzzleloader.
Yeah, you don't have to get quite as close.
You don't have to get so close. You can take it a little more easy. You got more effective range.
Sure.
You don't have to be so aggressive.
Yeah. Preston, do you change that strategy up any, or again, left to your own devices?
I might throw a bump and dump in there.
Ooh, look at you.
I mean, and not necessarily, for those that don't know what a bump and dump is, I mean, that's essentially your physically or smell, what do they call that, a wind
bump, soft bump.
You're essentially scaring a deer, for lack of better terms, out of his home. And so you're doing this bump and dump in his bed, hoping that he'll be back in the next day or two, because a lot of times they actually do come back.
Sure. Yep. Okay. That makes sense.
Because the thinking is they were successful in that bed.
Yeah.
A buck will bed somewhere because, hey, he feels safe there, and he eluded that predator when you bumped him out of there. So, hey, that worked. I didn't get killed. I'm alive still, so I might as well go back there.
Yep.
At least that's the thinking.
Good strategy.
That's the thought.
Yeah.
Yep.
And down there was quite a bit of walk-in. There was quite a bit of public. So if you screw up on one,
there's more out there.
You got chances for others.
So all that strategy that we just talked about, can't do it at a place like this because, like we'd mentioned, that you brought up, Preston, they've got hunters that came before us. They've got us there in camp. They got other people in camp at the same time us. And then they have another 1.5 months or 2 months where they're going to have hunters. So they can't afford to have Joe Blow out there bumping and dumping and stomping around in the bedding cover.
Before we get to December, I will mention that in December that it was a full house. There was a lot of hunters, a lot of guides there working, but they had a lot of people there. Not as many as in September. Should we bring up how Sam's hunt went?
Yeah, we should. Yeah, Sam Forbes, great guy.
He had a cameraman with him, obviously filming for North American Whitetail TV. The very first evening, right?
Yeah.
He had a borderline shooter. They like to shoot mature deer down there, as we all do and should. It doesn't really matter as long as it's legal. But down there, they want you to shoot a mature deer, and I can't argue with them because they want big deer to be taken and the little ones to grow. It's their business, whatever. Borderline shooter, probably would have done it, but it was so dark at the point that it
was camera light.
Camera light was fading. We did take a look at it.
Yep.
He had a great cameraman with him. His name was Danny Dodge.
Yep.
Out of Colorado, a very unique feller. Taught me a lot. I rode down there with Danny. He was very, very interesting. Learned a little bit from him. That was really cool. But the camera light was just borderline, and it was right at the end. If you're going to do it, you got to do it right now. You got to make a decision, and he held off.
Yep. And I can't blame him for holding off. And reviewing the footage, it's dark enough you can't really see. And from a scoreable point standpoint, his antlers looked good, but when you're trying to shoot a mature deer, it's not just headgear. And I can't verify if that was a 3.5-year-old buck or 4.5-year-old buck. And it's,
You wanted it to be a no doubter.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
You
that
can
was
tell when
the
you see those big deer.
that was the closest he got.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To shooting a deer. He saw a lot of does, a lot of little bucks as well, but
Yep.
that was the closest he got. Did you ever see anything of size, Ryan?
No, I know. No, that first night I saw a couple, like I said, 1.5-year-old bucks, and after that, I don't even know if I'd seen a buck after that. Just does.
Okay. Well, Preston and I, towards the end of our adventure, was it put in like day 4, maybe day 3.5? It was a morning hunt.
Well, I think it was 4.
The fourth morning that we were there, we were looking in our box blind faced the east, and we could see north, east, and south, obviously. Well, to the west, it was maybe 200 yards to the property boundary, and then the neighbors there had standing beans, but the beans weren't like thigh-high beans. They were like
Chest high.
They were like chest-high beans. I don't know what kind of hybrid they're planting down there.
It was the wet spots of the field were that high.
Yeah, it was remarkable. Well, we're glassing back in there just looking, and there's antler tips in there.
Yeah, there's no reason we should have been looking back there even. But
Yeah.
happened to do it. This guy was pretty darn nice.
There was a good, like you just said, there's a no-doubter in the neighbor's property for sure. 250 yards, 275 yards probably. And we never did get the best look at him because those beans were so tall, but there was no doubt that he would have got a Boar Driver FTX.
I know he had tines, but I know his bases were just like tree trunks.
Yeah, good, mature, again, no doubter, no questions asked deer. So that was taunting. You know, you see that on your second to last morning, and so you know that caliber of deer's out there, and you know all he has to do is slip up just one time.
I believe it was the second morning a buck comes out. I think it was the second or third morning, and a buck comes out by a 115, maybe squeak a 120 out of him type of a deer, but just you could tell he was
super young.
probably 2.5. I mean, he had a lot of growing to do, and I mean, he's just standing there at 80 yards for 5 minutes.
Yeah,
it's just tough on a guy. But
He'll get smarter as he ages, and yeah, if he was a 2.5-year-old buck, he'll be hard not to shoot as a 3.5-year-old buck, and if he makes it to 5 years old, man, he's going to be a slammer.
He'll be a Kansas stud.
Yeah, great genetics in that neck of the woods. I mean, just absolutely fantastic. Now, that kind of is the synopsis of the September hunt. We went down there for a week. We had an absolutely great time. We saw a ton of deer. Some other guys in camp killed some slammer bucks.
A gentleman shot I think they said they scored him at 160.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
Booner.
Nice one.
Yeah, so there's some good bucks killed. Miss Carol cooked us up all kinds of meals. We all left 5 pounds heavier. We slept good. Took some naps, which we've all got young children, so that was awkward to
That was neat.
get a nap during the day. But let's not go too far without talking about the town of Clay Center, Kansas, because that's a groovy little town right there. If there's ever a reason to divert your travels and go through Clay Center, I really like that little town, and they had a wonderful zoo.
Yep.
So
things you wouldn't expect to see in it. I don't know, Clay Center's
4,500.
Was it?
Yeah.
Okay.
And we even
Sure,
saw
I
a classic car show while we were there.
Yeah.
If you're there for any reason when there's a classic car show in the park, stop and look.
Yep. So, yeah, the one afternoon, there's not a lot of action going on in the field, between the hours of probably 10:30 and 11 and 2:30, something like that. So we come into town, we have a nice bite for lunch, and then instead of taking a nap, we're like, let's go to the zoo. So they have a zoo. It's a self-service zoo. I guess.
Just walk right up and look.
Yeah, you walk right in there, but it wasn't just like, here's a badger or whatever. They had bobcats, they had monkeys,
Bears.
they had bears, a parrot
Lemurs.
that talks, lemurs, yeah. Just like the movie Madagascar. I mean, it was really a nice little,
Some weird looking ducks.
Yeah, we were there for a hunt, but that was a great experience. They had a beautiful park. That was amazing. And then it was the same day or the day after, classic car show at the city park.
I think it was the same day. It was fantastic.
Yep. Saw an all-original 1983 Monte Carlo Super Sport with less than 4,000 original miles on it, which I'm a G-body fan, taking a car tangent, but that thing was too legit to quit.
For our listeners, Seth owns a classic Monte Carlo, so that's why he's so keen on this one.
Yeah. So it's just a great little town, and to be fair, the whole experience was great. The guide service, the lodge service, the quality of where we were at, the quality of the habitat, the numbers of deer you were seeing. I mean, it was just there was no reason to be down about, oh, I didn't see one today, or see a shooter, because you were seeing enough deer that your hopes were like, oh, at any second I could see a big hog molly come through.
Kind of waiting for one to slip up one time
Mhm.
before dark.
Yep. So it was a good experience. I had a great time hanging out with not only the crew at Midwest Whitetail Adventures, but you guys. I mean, having Sam there, Danny Dodge was there. It's just fun. Just guys hanging out in deer camp, which doesn't get a whole lot better than that.
Right.
So let's fast forward now. We come home from that hunt, and then we learn somewhere in there that a Kansas muzzleloader tag in September is valid during their normal gun season in December. Again, you still have to use muzzleloading hardware. So as it turns out, Ryan and Sam had some stuff going on where they couldn't make it back down there to Kansas, but Preston and I carved a couple days out of our schedule to make it back down there, and that was much different experience.
Yeah, they were very nice to squeeze us in down there.
Oh yeah, they didn't have to do that either. That was a super good squeeze play. So we get down there, and no hunters in camp. They had scheduled a 1 or 2 day buffer
break.
Yeah,
Yeah,
where
they
they
would do
split
a
their gun
first half.
season up.
Yep.
And so, we say hi to Miss Carol, and we get settled in, and they really didn't unleash us, if you will, but they kind of let us, have some say about what our futures held and what stands we were going to, and we got to see, a little bit of behind the scenes of what's going on at a guide service for a whitetail group like that, because we need to talk about, in Kansas, baiting is legal. And let's just say those guys can shovel some corn.
Yeah, tons of it.
Quite literal tons.
Right.
Tons of corn. And in Nebraska, baiting, not legal. Kansas, perfectly legal. I've got my opinion.
We should say in Nebraska, baiting is legal.
For photo purposes.
You have to be 200 yards away from the bait site, right? 200.
Yep. Anything
And
inside
then you
of
have to
200 yards is considered a baited site.
Yes, but you can
But you
bait within 200
as
yards,
long
but
as-
you have to remove it
10 days prior to any big game season.
So that's
Yeah.
antelope. Period.
Okay.
But anyway, so there is some baiting. Down
Yeah.
there, it's
Full on.
willy-nilly.
Yep. So I'll save my opinion of it to the end, and not my opinion of baiting, but my experience with how it's done in Kansas. What were your thoughts on it?
My thoughts from there. So you're running a whitetail guide service. You got to have a lot of options to take a lot of clients out. So they have a lot of sets, and you want to get pictures of all these deer, bucks, big bucks.
Which,
People like seeing trail cam pictures.
to
of big bucks.
interject, they had trail cam pictures
Yeah,
of some
they
giant
had, They
bucks.
had giants.
Yeah.
No doubt. But they got to be able to access those spots to maintenance the corn. So those spots, like I mentioned earlier, might not be in the spot I would hunt, have it be my own ground, or I'd choose that for public ground. And yeah, that's understandable. So, but from that experience, what was attracted to that corn and what felt comfortable going to that corn was does
Young deer.
and just young deer in general.
The
Mhm.
fattest raccoons you've ever
And
seen in your life.
Booner coons.
Yeah.
Man,
100%. Yeah, Boone and Crockett lifetime coons. Yeah, those were.
I would be surprised if they didn't eat half of the bait down there.
right.
The raccoons.
Yeah. So what I was going to mention, it kind of ties into what you just said. Although it's perfectly legal, and I have no problems with that, I really didn't see a mature animal on the bait sites, and maybe that's different during different times of year. Certainly in September, we didn't see a deer over 2.5 come to it, and nothing with headgear. So I don't know how effective it is per se. Their trail cam photos, like you mentioned, at say midnight, 2 in the morning.
Yeah. Dark
Yeah.
30 early season.
Yeah, there's some big bucks
Early
there.
or maybe preseason.
So what I wanted to, you could add that. Think about what time of year we were there, and like you mentioned earlier, all the vegetation still beautiful green growth. At the time, they're actively taking corn out, so they're actively harvesting. Some got standing bean fields still. They don't really need to go to that corn, right?
Yeah. And when
you fast forward to now or mid-December, and it's snow
Yeah.
on the ground, it's cold.
sure.
Hey, that's easy nutrition for them. They're there, but at that time of year, not so
Yeah.
much.
And us not being arborists, Ryan, when do those oaks start dropping?
Usually that time. I mean, it's
Okay, right in there.
mid
So they
September,
really
late September, early October, depending on where you're at.
okay.
So, and then those fresh acorn drops, they're going to be hitting that, and they're going to be hitting that. I talk like I know what I'm talking about, but from experience and generally,
We think you do.
you can assume that deer are going to be hitting those oaks, dropping fresh acorns in the cover before they venture out of cover
Yeah, that
to
makes
hit
sense.
a corn pile or even the cornfield or bean field,
Sure.
because then they're out of their comfort zone, out of their cover.
Yep.
Why not wait till dark to do that if I got fresh acorns on
And
the
is it a
ground here?
freshness thing? They want to eat them while they're
Yeah.
fresh. They
Anything
don't
I
like
see
'em.
and I've seen or have heard of other guys, if you got a fresh drop, that is most attractive. And it's not just deer; it'll be everything in
Coons.
the woods eating that stuff.
Yeah, squirrels, everything.
Squirrels, coons, everything.
Yeah. So that does make sense, though. That, yeah, at that time of year, not only do you still have some standing crops and all your native browse, and you're starting to drop those acorns, they've got plenty to eat, which probably helps in them growing giant racks down there. So yeah, from the baiting standpoint, I didn't experience it being that huge. Now fast forward to December when we went there. This would have been the first week of December, second week of December.
I can't recall.
I'll be honest with you, I have gone smell blind. Yeah, I think it was
Early
I think it was
December.
been that second weekend, but like around the 10th.
Okay.
Like first week and a
Yeah,
half.
for whatever reason,
Okay.
the 10th sticks out.
So I would say we did see more activity on the bait sites, but still not a lot of really mature animals on the bait sites. But for sure they were hitting it way more than they were in September.
to be fair,
To be fair.
we saw one mature animal
Yeah.
while we were down there. So
Yeah.
he eventually did, but it wasn't like the does and the young bucks that were there an hour before, nighttime.
Yep.
Daylight,
Yeah.
ends, whatever you want to
Shooting
call
light.
it. Shooting light. There we go. My goodness, smell blind again.
Yeah.
It's going around. He skirted the open area and the bait
Yeah.
site until he just couldn't help it anymore. Or
Yeah.
felt
be-
like there was enough animals in there watching for him.
So before we get there, like I was mentioning, they kind of let us have not free reign, of course, but they were working with us on where we wanted to go and what we thought about the wind and this, that, and the other thing. And then we got to see kind of behind the scenes of what they were doing, and they scheduled that time with no hunters, and then we were the only ones there for the first couple of days, and those guys was working. Like I said, shoveling corn, pulling trail cameras. I mean, they were busy around the clock, which was really a neat perspective to see that side of it. And so yeah, we're hunting, and then the second wave of their gun season, those hunters show up, and then now camp went from me and Preston and a handful of guides to a full house. And what was really neat is that the way that they made everybody feel good, everybody was fed, and the same experience we got when we came there in September. Everybody received that same sort of hospitality, and they were dropping deer. I mean, there was some deer being shot, which was obviously with gun season.
Coincidentally, I think they all were the same night that
So
you shot yours.
yeah, so so the night that I shot this buck here, there was a 140 something, and then a legit mainframe 561-inch deer got killed, and that thing,
160.
Yeah.
You said 561.
I thought I said
Mainframe
Main-
5.
161.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, that 140 was a 4x4.
Yeah, and his
I mean-
main beams were, they were nuts. So let's.
A 140 4x4 is big.
It's a big
anywhere.
4x4, yeah. And yeah, he had mass for days, and he carried it up to the tips. So set the stage here. We got to hunt this spot called the Serengeti, and it was kind of a food plot area right on the river, and a huge timber stand. I mean, right on the edge of this field, right by the river, and the timber's, like Preston said earlier, just old. These trees are huge in diameter, and so many of them. So it was probably like a 500, 450 yard walk to get back in there. And we sat that for, I think, a morning, and then we killed this deer on the evening hunt. So you get in there, it's a nice redneck blind set up right on the edge of this food plot area. And every time that we'd sat that, so 3 times total, we'd get deer coming in directly. They'd come from the south to the north, and then kind of from the southwest headed north, and then from our immediate right from the west, and they would hit this food plot. And no shortage of deer. I mean, they were moving often. We got some great footage of just deer doing deer stuff.
Things.
Yeah. So that's going on, and we were holding out for a good buck, obviously. And on the last night, we get some deer activity going on, and it's, it gets dark pretty early. It was getting dark at 5 o'clock or 5:30.
And this was going to be it. This was the last night.
The last night.
We were leaving that night.
So at like 2:30 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, we just get to the stand, and we got deer coming in. And the deer are all doing deer stuff, and then they'll stop and they'll look into the timber. And you're like, okay, there's got to be something there. And well, sure enough, more deer come out. Well, fast forward 90 minutes, and Preston and I have got, I don't know how many deer in the field in front of us.
At least a dozen.
Yeah, a dozen deer, a couple young bucks, a lot of does and fawns. This one little fawn had a case of the zoomies, and she's running around doing circles and stuff. And just a nice night in the deer woods. And Preston can hear something out his window. He was sitting on the far west side of this blind, and 20 minutes go by and nothing ever appears. Well, it's getting closer to dark, and then I'm talking to Preston, and through the window over here, I see 3 does in a line, and then I see a buck with his head down, and I just see antler tips. And I got real excited because it was a no-doubter. Like, oh, that's a good buck. So these 3 does feed in or walk through this timber, and they make no hesitation. Whew, timber, field, they're hitting the food plot, hitting the corn, getting after it. Well, the buck hangs up in the edging, and there he stands. And we get a chance to get a good look at him now with binoculars, and he was only 150 yards maybe.
Yeah.
Did not need binoculars to look at this thing.
These were just like glowing white in the dark timber. It was neat. It
really was. Yeah, the sun going down, it was just beautiful, and just a barrel-chested, majestic standing there. I mean, he just big, mature, huge neck. Even into December, he's just looks massive, and he's got obviously the headgear to boot. And he comes closer to the edge of the food plot, and he hangs up again. And I'm thinking, like, this guy's going to ride this out till dark.
I'm thinking, shoot him.
Yeah, well, the other thing, we wanted to film it, so we wanted to make sure things lined up well. And I'm thinking he's going to hang up right there until it gets dark, and then he'll step out. This is how it's going to end. There's nothing you're going to do to get him out of there. Well, as fortune would have it, he steps out, and he starts at about 120, and he actually walks to 102 yards. He actually gets closer, and his whole driver's side of his back, right up along his backstrap, was missing fur, almost all of it.
He was a fighter.
He was a fighter, and he'd been fighting, and I don't know if some of that was just carried over from the rut, or that mixed in with some of that delayed onset kind of secondary rut phase going on in early December. But man, he was missing fur.
Yeah, he was worn down a little bit.
He was.
Needed some carbs.
He needed some carbs. And what he ended up getting was a 290 grain bore driver FTX, because he came into 102 yards, and he stopped, and he broadside. And a couple things happened. One, Preston found that to be a good time to cough. So he did do that. But
those redneck blinds are fantastic.
Yeah, they're fantastic. So
until there's 12 deer at 30 yards under you.
Yeah, and then you can't do anything. But so that was a joke. He did cough. So I'm set up shooting a really budget-friendly muzzleloader. And when Ryan, when you were doing the bore driver FTX development, you guys bought, I would say, a plethora of muzzleloaders that varied from really expensive to $199 at the local Walmart. And that's the gun that I was shooting. The Traditions Buckstalker with the little shorter barrel, Leupold 3-9 scope on there. And man, it shot those bore driver FTXs, 100-yard groups. The smallest group was 0.8 of an inch. And the largest group I ever shot was like an inch or an inch one. I mean, it just wadded these things up. So I'm in the corner of the blind. I've got little wedge going on, set up, and he gives me a head up shot. I was like, all right, Preston, you ready? And he says, no, he's not in focus. So I was like, at this point, the deer have gotten really close.
In my defense, I was obviously running manual focus, and he stopped as close to behind a tree as possible, and it focused on the tree, and I needed to move it over.
Yeah.
Anyway, we got it in focus.
We got it in focus. But by then, a lot of these does had gotten, they started at 100 to 70 yards, and now they're at 30 to 20 yards from us. And they're starting to get a little bit spooky. And so, he got it in focus. He gave me the go-ahead, and that buck picked his head up one last time and, touched one off and made a good shot. And that's where I started to feel real not super great.
Right.
So,
because he ran out.
Yeah, he ran
Ran off.
So up to this point, being primarily a rifle hunter, almost every deer I've shot in the last long time has died on the spot. I'm a high shoulder shooter, and that seems to disrupt the central nervous system enough that they lose consciousness and then they die on the ground. It's just bang flop. And that's the experience I've had hunting deer, and I didn't expect that with a muzzleloader bullet going that much slower. But he runs off, and there's always that feeling of like trying to slowly process information. Okay, this is the direction you ran. There's a landmark of where he went into the timber. So he runs off, and as he's running and he hits the edge of the timber, he stumbles. And, just like anything else, deer, dogs, those animals don't stumble. They're top tier athletes. They don't stumble. So I see him just miss a step as he goes into the timber. So Preston's talking me up that it was a good shot, and I'm trying to play devil's advocate only in that I don't want to be super confident. But we walk out into the field.
Keep your hopes low. That way the result is that much better.
Yeah. So we gave him like 10 minutes maybe in the stand. We get out and we walk to where the shot took place and where we thought he entered the timber, and we found just a little bit of blood. So we said, okay, that's all we need to see. Let's go back to camp, have Miss Carol's supper, get fat and happy, and then we'll come back out there and give him some time.
It was spaghetti night.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I mean,
Fantastic.
I wanted to throw up.
It was an athlete's meal.
Yeah, we earned our carbs that day.
Yeah.
So,
But I also wanted to go back and watch the shot on a big laptop. I tried watching it on just so small on the camera's screen. We put it on the laptop. I put it in Adobe. I ran it frame by frame, and we were able to get hair coming off of the deer, and then
the entrance.
We could see right where it
Yeah.
went in.
Yep, which was a great double lung shot behind the shoulder.
Yep.
So that gave me confidence when Preston slowed it down frame by frame by frame. You can see that bullet hit. And you can see his neck and his body kind of shake as he absorbed it. You can tell that bullet was transferring some energy. Yeah, we did have a delicious meal. That was great. I ate enough garlic bread. I probably reeked of garlic for days.
We could go off on a tangent about spaghetti, but let's not on this platform.
So we gather the troops. We go back out there. All right. So,
and by troops, it's the co-owner of the guide service and
2 guides.
I was going to say 3. I think
Could have been
3.
Oh yeah, it was 3. Jim,
the kind of
Merritt,
the assistant one, and then
yeah. Okay. So I apologize if I forget the other guy's name. So
4 guys.
Yep. So
and us.
We get out there, and we go back to where we first saw last blood, and then big flashlights, and we're nose to the stone, slowly going through looking for tiny drops of blood, moving on, and then after I don't know, we probably went 20 yards into the timber. I think it was Merritt was just like,
hey, he's right there.
He's just over here. It's like he's the only one standing there with his head up.
Yeah.
And so all in all, I thought that deer, in hindsight, I said, oh yeah, he only went 60, 80 yards, something like that. No, not even. He went like 40. And as we were standing there, we heard him pile up.
I thought we heard him, but you never for sure.
Yep. So
unless he falls on like deadfall or something, where sticks are breaking, I'm never super confident about it.
Yeah, true.
But we did hear something as we were looking for those blood. We heard a crash, and it was like, okay, maybe that was him, maybe it wasn't. Turns out it likely was.
Well, there's lots of deer in those woods.
Yeah.
Too. So.
But yeah, he did only go maybe 40 yards, and just a slammer buck. Obviously, we've got him sitting here on the table with us. That's the kind of buck you're after in Kansas, right there. Yep. He just a slob. His body was huge. Obviously, he had the headgear to go with it. Just a dominant buck.
You did have a clean pass through on that shot, right?
Clean pass through. Yep, and the blood was picking up as we were going in the timber. We made it 10 yards, and then way bigger patch of blood. And then you make it 15 or 12 yards, and there's an even bigger patch of blood, and then he was dead 7 yards
I would
later.
say the shot was an inch or two above center.
Mm-hmm.
So that chest cavity had to fill up in order to get the blood to start coming out more and more. But complete pass through with the muzzle loader, obviously good expansion because that exit wound was
50-cent golf ball, maybe. And so for reference, I was shooting 75 grains of weight of Blackhorn 209 with that bore driver FTX and that shorter barrel. Muzzle velocity was only like 1780 feet per second.
Yeah, so already
Short
starting relatively slow.
Yeah, it wasn't not traveling a whole lot, but didn't catch a bullet, clean pass through. And then when we got him back to the shop there and got him cleaned up, not to be morbid, but lung tissue, he was hanging upside down, head to the ground. And as we were just kind of doing a pseudo autopsy, if you will, just because
it's the business
guys.
that we're in.
Yeah. And we were grabbing chunks of lung from his chest cavity. I mean, it obliterated those things. So absolutely outstanding terminal performance, Ryan. Thanks for a good
done.
bullet.
Good to hear.
Yeah, hit where I was aiming and definitely did the job. We definitely celebrated that night for sure. It was just epic to do that on the last night of the hunt.
Yep.
The coolest part, well, not the coolest, but one of the coolest parts, and we've talked about this before, is we woke up that next morning, and I was supposed to beat feet home because I had something going on. We ended up moving that. It might have been a work thing, so just brush that off. Preston and I woke up that next morning, and the guides there, that's normally their job, is to clean that up, and you can take the meat or take it to a processor there or whatever. Well, we shooed them out of there, basically, politely, of course, and Preston and I sharpened up the knives. We had a stainless steel workbench. Preston on the hitch, he was cutting off chunks. I was cleaning up chunks on the table.
Well, me and Preston,
oh, there's two Prestons.
our guide,
Yeah.
Preston skinned it, and then I was handing you meat. You were going to town.
And that was really great because rarely, and I love processing animals myself, Ryan, I know you do the same. Preston, I know you're all about that. Rarely do I have an animal hanging with plenty of space, an extra set of hands, and no time schedule. And so we really took our time. Preston did an amazing job of cleaning that animal up. When we were done, it was awesome. You could see through it, through both sides, all the rib meat, one whole rib slab, which we'll talk about. We just got every ounce of usable meat off that thing, and I was able to get it cut up how I wanted it, trimmed how I wanted it, packaged how I wanted it, ready to take home.
Well, let's talk about that one side of ribs, and then I do want to mention something. Go ahead.
Okay, so that one side of ribs, I've always wanted to do this, and again, with young families, and just for a cool factor, I wanted to make lolly chops, or that's what we call them at home. You call them whatever you want, but basically a quote-unquote tomahawk, where you take the back strap and leave a rib attached. And so we cut off with a Sawzall most of the ribs, and then came in with I think we used a fillet knife and took off the back strap. Once I had it on the table, we trimmed the whole back strap. And I think it's important to note, if you're thinking about doing this at home, trim the back strap of all the silver skin and anything you don't want on there before you cut it into chops, because there's not a lot holding that thing together. And then cut it into steaks. And then I took my replaceable blade. I use the small Gerber Vital 3.5-inch blade, and was able to just trim every single rib. And we picked up a tip from a guy. He uses dental floss. Dental floss, pull it tight, and then we'll wiggle it back and forth like a saw to get that bone nice and clean. And then we cut it into steaks. I'll tell you what, it took a little bit to do. It was our first time doing it, so I was a little bit clumsy at first. But I think I took 10 of those home, 8, 2 packages of 4. Took 4 of the 2 packages of 4, and I've got a 6 and a 3-year-old, and do a nice little marinade on those. Throw them on the grill, 2.5 minutes aside. Beautiful medium rare, plenty of
There's a handle right
and there's a handle. And so I've got so many pictures. I sent them to Preston, our guide, while we were there. I sent them to a bunch of my family that, I got my 6 and 3-year-old with this lolly chop, just getting after it. And obviously it's delicious backstrap, but it was a cool factor that I'd never done, and I can't wait to do that again on another deer, and I'm certainly going to do it on the next elk I kill.
Yeah, that'd be even more impressive looking too.
Because they were cool for me as an appetizer, but I want, 8 or 10 ounces on there. But
Right.
I don't know. That was worthwhile, and I really enjoyed that processing aspect of the hunt. I've never, in any animal I've ever processed myself, I have never gotten to that level of completion where I've taken that much meat off it.
And what I was going to say is, as I'm getting older and I'm doing things differently and we're trying new things, whatever, until this past year, I would say I've probably cleaned all of the antelope and deer that I've shot or helped with, whether they be laying on the ground, in the field, or in my garage on a table, laying down. When you can have an electronic hoist and all of the room in the world, and you skin that deer, and the only hair coming off of it is that first cut you make around the legs, it makes for such a cleaner and more enjoyable process.
Yep.
I mean, it was absolutely fantastic. They got hoses right there for us, 2 electronic winches. It was a nice setup, and maybe I'm just getting old. I really enjoyed the easiness of electronic hoists, and I don't want to bend over so much.
Yeah. Well,
and that deer's moving.
Obviously, that was the easy factor was great, but maybe it is we're getting older. Ryan, you jump in on this too. We've always enjoyed processing our own stuff, but again, I have never been able to get that much usable protein from an animal, but it was hanging, it was clean, everything was it was awesome.
Yeah, that no time constraint is the big thing for me.
That's probably the biggest one.
You got a wife at home with kids, and it's like, oh, I killed a deer. Great. Now you got to spend all day tomorrow dealing with it. Like, that's the reaction you feel like you're going to get. Like, my goal is to get this done in 2.5 hours, start to finish. I'm going to have this buck or doe that's here in my truck bed. I'm going to have it all in the freezer and completely cleaned up in 3 hours. And then you just feel rushed, and you don't get to do those types of things and try new things and different cuts. And your butchering skills might get sloppy. Mm-hmm. But if you have plenty of time, that makes the whole process just that more enjoyable.
And I think, now that we talk about it out loud here, on all of my future hunts, and most of which I'm taking an animal out by the quarter, and so we're processing it where it lays in the field. I strongly dislike killing animals in the evening, because I then feel rushed by cleaning them up at night when I'm however many miles away from my truck or whatever. But regardless of when I shoot something, I'm going to make a concerted effort to whatever I'm doing to just, right before I do it, to just stop and make sure that I'm going to, 1, do the best I can, and 2, like, purposefully draw it out so that I do a better job. Because it was, to look at that carcass when I turned around after packaging my last little bit, turned around, it was like, whoa, like there's nothing. A coyote would not.
And you decided that you're going to do a European mount, so I had already taken the head off at the neck. We got all of the neck meat. I mean, it was just bones there. Yeah,
just fantastic. So I think moving forward, I'm going to probably make a little bit more of an effort, and we should probably do it more so when we're quartering an animal in the field, kind of doing the gutless method. You should take, it was cool because we had an electric winch and whatever, but like, we should take more time when we're quartering an animal, because, sometimes I feel rushed knowing that, okay, the sun's going to be down at this time, or I've got this many miles to go, or this is really going to suck, or, whatever. You just want to start the misery so you can get it over with,
right.
And that doesn't do justice to the animal. And so I think I'm glad we talked about this.
I think we're all learning something here today.
Yeah.
About ourselves.
Yep. The more deer, then it really started to process for me this year. The more deer you kill, the more deer I kill. I try to enjoy that process, after the kill. I try to enjoy that process a little bit more every single time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like, even if I'm going to pack a doe out full carcass on my back, which I did several times this year.
Proud of you.
It's not. Pretty much that 2.5-year-old doe is about as much as you can handle without doing the quarters. But Yeah, and if you do it, I'm a mile and a half on public ground, and it's dark. It's evening. It's dark, and I just now got up to this deer. It's like, well, hey, just take it slowly, enjoy it, because those are the memories I look back on. And I always like, if I got a dead deer laying there or got it on my pack, I'd take a picture. I'm by myself. I got the sun just barely even visible in the horizon, a little bit of orange left. Take a picture. Remember that situation right there. And then from there, it's just okay and enjoy the process. I got to haul it back to the truck. I can hang it up, or I'm going to quarter it here. Regardless, once it gets back, I know it's going to take some time, and just dedicate some time to it.
Yep.
You'll appreciate it that much more. You appreciate that meat in the freezer that much more afterwards.
Yep. It becomes something you want to do, not something you have to do.
Right.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, that was Kansas, long form, but also in a nutshell. It was a great experience. If any of you out there listening are, trying to piece something together and you want to kind of hit an easy button, if you will, got nothing but good things to say about Midwest Whitetail Adventures. The guide service, the lodging, the farms out of sight, some of the deer killed in camp that we got to see, some of the trail cam photos that they have. Just, it's what Kansas is known for. Big bucks, just outstanding.
Great experience.
Yep. Yeah, it really was. We're a ways out from hunting season, but
I'm
man,
ready for it again.
I'm ready for it again. I'm looking forward to packing animals out and getting the processing done and just all the things that go into it. And as my kids get a little bit older, and I know we all sharing this, and they're eating that protein or the steaks or the roast or the snack sticks and the jerky and stuff, as they continually get older, they're eating just more volumes of food, and I see them going to that every morning. And I had shot an elk in Colorado this year, early November, and I had another set of events going on for work that I just couldn't. There's no way that I could process this elk on my own. So I went to a local meat processor. I mean, all good things, nothing but great things to say about the quality and the flavor and just everything about it. Well, I got some snack sticks made, 40 pounds.
A lot of snack sticks.
Yeah, 40 pounds of snack sticks with cheddar in there. Nothing spicy because my kids are 6 and 3. Well, my wife has joked that my kids are like little frat boys because like in the morning, they'll have a protein shake and snack sticks. They'll have venison snack sticks and a pseudo protein shake for breakfast, and that's so satisfying. And now, like I said, they're just eating more volumes as they get older, and like they just can get in the fridge by themselves, and they're just walking around the house eating this snack stick, and it's like that's just awesome.
It's all paying off.
Yep, awesome. Well, yeah, if we keep talking about it, I'm not going to be able to contain myself, but we'll do another podcast here, hopefully a few months as the draw results come out for 2022, and we'll look at what we got going on, because I'm thinking 2022, 2023 already. I can't wait to get back out there, get hunting, test the gear, and I was going to bring this up to you guys offline, but since we're here, we can record it because I think we should do a podcast about maybe some of our gear, and I don't know. I find that interesting as kind of a gear guy.
Yeah.
And
maybe some of our viewers will too.
I guess out there in podcast land, if a podcast on our gear and maybe what our style of hunting is and the gear that we find most useful for that, we could get a bunch of different dudes on, from the hang and hunt whitetail guy, the elk hunter guy, the western Nebraska, eastern Colorado, eastern Wyoming kind of type hunting, day hunts for spot and stock kind of stuff. Let us know if that's something you'd be interested in, because I know I'm always, Ryan, I bet you're the same way. Preston, you got to be the same way. Like, I'm just trying to find, if I have a niche in my armor, a chink in my armor, as far as equipment goes, like, I want to find that, address it, and if I can find a way to address that chink in the armor, that also solves another problem, or lets me take one less thing. If I can find a piece of gear that solves two problems, I'm always trying to just refine that, and I find a lot of joy in just playing mind games with myself about that.
It's what we think about all day long.
Okay. Yeah. Then it's official. So we should do a gear one. We should also do a gun a firearm. Like, he's got what I would consider one of the ultimate spot and stock type rifle hunting setups. And then, we can get a few other people on that maybe go with something different. We should talk about that stuff too. Great.
Fair enough.
All good things. All right, everybody. So, thanks for tuning in on this one and joining us on our Kansas adventure. It was an adventure. It was a great time. Luckily, we had some success, and hopefully this gets you guys thinking about the fall, and we'll catch you on the next one.